On the recommendation of the hotel manager, we'll leave East Glacier National Park, drive to Browning, since there's road construction, drive over to Many Glacier's hotel. After leaving Many Glaciers, we'll drive over to St. Mary's and catch the Going to the Sun Highway, which will go across Glacier National Park, almost to McDonald Lake. At the Trail of the Cedars, we'll turn around and go back the other way and look at everything from the different direction until we see a grizzly, and then we will head back across and go all the way over to Kalispell, where we'll be spending the night. Thus, we'll pass through the central part of the Going to the Sun Highway 3 different times. This is actually called the Waterton Glacier International Peace Park and World Heritage Site. The northern part in Canada is called Waterton Park, and the southern part is called Glacier, but they operate as one unit, and there's only one highway through the entire thing. This spot is a meeting place for all the ecosystems in the western United States and Canada, as you can see from this picture. The one highway through it is called Going to the Sun Road and goes all the way across it. It's 48.7 miles long and was built in 1919 and hugs the cliffs here as we approach the Continental Divide and runs through the forest along the shoreline on the east and the west. For a large chunk of the time, it's closed due to snow, and they have to clear it each spring so that you can drive on it. It's only open maybe 3 to 4 months out of the entire year. And here's Montana Living showing them clearing the snow, sometimes 30 or 40 feet high on the road. And so early in the morning, we load our luggage into the car and we head out toward Glacier National Park. It's raining when we leave, and here we are going through Browning. This is the capital of the Blackfeet Nation that has their Indian reservation to the east of Glacier, and we'll be crossing it for most of the time we drive till we get to the park. They have some horses here out and walking along the highway. And as you can see, this road is rather long and straight, as many of them are in Montana. And soon we can see the Rocky Mountains that form Glacier National Park. There are lots of low clouds hanging over the mountains, so they are obscured much of the time as we drive towards them. And now we head down Many Glaciers Road toward Many Glaciers Hotel, and it's extremely potholed and very rough road. We will be driving along the Swift Current Creek and Lake Shoreburn as we head to Many Glacier. And now we leave the Blackfoot Nation and enter into Glacier National Park. The roads get better, as you can see. Glacier National Park was formed in 1910, and in 1932 it was joined with Waterton in Canada. When we arrive at Many Glacier's hotel, we're going to park and look around just a little bit before leaving. This is one of the other Great Northern Railroad hotels that were built to entice people to come here instead of to Europe. And people have been coming here since the early 1900s. As we look around, the mist continues to hang over the mountains around us and giving them a mysterious look. And these vintage vehicles are used to carry people around the park to stop some of the congestion around. They have various stops along the Going to the Sun Highway that you can hop on and hop off. You can also hop on a horse here if you want to. And now it's time to head back out and go to St. Mary. Along the way we pass Lake Sherburne Lake Dam. It's a little low right now, I guess getting ready for the winter snows. Again, the road is rather rough and very, very potholed. And now we speed up a little bit as we drive over to St. Mary. St. Mary is the eastern entrance into the park on the Going to the Sun road. And we'll get gas here before we head into the park. And now it's time to enter the park and start looking at all the wonderful sights. Although Glacier National Park has much wildlife inside it, its main draw is the scenic views that you will see while here. We will stop at the Visitor Center and look at their little museum and displays about what we'll be seeing before we get back on the road again. The driving parts of this time through, we're going to be speeding up to 10x, and then we'll stop and look at some of the sights along the way. We start out in the lowlands driving along St. Mary Lake. At our next stop, we'll be looking at Triple Divide Peak. For part of the time we're there, it's under the covers of the clouds. And then it comes out, and there it is. This is an extremely important little peak, for all the water that falls on here, the water that falls on one side goes to the Pacific. On another side, it goes over to the Gulf of Mexico, and some goes over to the Hudson Bay. So which place a drop of water falls on this peak determines which direction it's going. Now we stop to take some pictures of Wild Goose Island out in Lake St. Mary. You may have been noticing all the slopes of the mountains that have no trees on them. The trees seem to be burnt. Well, a Reynolds fire burned through here in July 21st, 2015 and destroyed most of the vegetation in this area, and it's still in the process of recovering. We had planned to walk to St. Mary Falls, but the parking lot is so full, we decided to go on and come back a little later and look at it. This is one of the problems you have here in the park. There's very little parking at many places, and there's a lot of people, even now, even if we are after Labor Day. I can't imagine what it would be like during the summer. Next, we'll stop at the Jackson Glacier Overlook and look at the only glacier that you can see from the Going to the Sun highway. And you won't be able to see it much longer. It is melting away rapidly, and it is estimated that there won't be a single glacier in Glacier National Park in another 20 years. And now we're passing Logan Pass Visitor Center. This is the central part of the Going to the Sun Highway. We're not going to stop now. We're coming back here later to look at this tomorrow and to walk a path here. All along the Going to the Sun Highway there are waterfalls, and we're going to stop at several of them. This is a beautiful one we're going to look at now. We're going to eventually end up down there on that road as we leave the park. And now we're down there on that road as we explore McDonald Creek. Notice how clear the water is. It's crystal clear. And also note the different colored rocks that have come from several different rock formations. On down McDonald Creek, we will find Red Rock Falls. And look there, again at that clear water. It's crystal clear and sky blue. Next on our itinerary is to walk the Trail of the Cedars. But first we have to find a parking place. Finally, after 20 minutes, a car pulls out and we have a place to park.
There's not really many places to park. I went actually all the way around this thing.
This is the route that we will be following, the 0.8 mile round trip on the trail. Part of the trail will be on boardwalks and part of the trail will be on hard-packed dirt. But all of it is handicap accessible. So it's a good trail for us tenderfoots to walk. So let's head on down the trail with Deborah the Explorer. This is an old growth forest and it's made up of 4 different types of plants. First we have the western red cedar. Then we have the western hemlock that grows just about as tall and just about as straight. Next up is the Pacific yew. It doesn't grow quite as tall as the other 2, but gives lots of shade. And then lastly we come to the cottonwood with its wide leaves. It gives so much shade along the river and keeps everything cool. So let's head down the trail and look around. Flowing through this area is Avalanche Creek, and we'll look along it some. Finally, we arrive at Avalanche Creek Bridge and our turnaround point. It was built in 1936. On one side, we can see how the river flows away from this area. And on the other side, we see the canyon that is being cut as the creek cuts through the rocks. And now it's time to head back on the other side of the loop.
On my computer and mine, I had like trucks and cars everywhere out there, right off the Interstate 70
And now we make this a turnaround point as we're heading back eastward now again. We're driving back to Lake St. Mary to see if the parking places around the falls area are open. And we'll be driving at 10x speed so you can see the whole thing without stops. As we're driving back, we notice many people pointing and looking, trying to figure out what they're looking at. We stop, and it's a grizzly bear, and so we stay a while and watch it up on the side of a hill. And
Really? I haven't seen him yet.
And now that it's getting later in the day, it's time for us to head to Kalispell, so we're not going to be able to go to St. Mary Lake and look at the falls. We start heading back west again. This will be our third and last trip through the central part of the park, on this day anyway. We pull off to go and look in the Logan's Pass Visitor Center a little bit, driving through it. It's going to be a very scenic place tomorrow when we come back early in the morning to walk the Going to the Hidden Lake Trail. Here we're at the Continental Divide, and this is the Hidden Lake Trail starting. We'll be able to see bighorn sheep maybe, and also mountain goats. And now it's time to head down and out of the park. Soon we're leaving Glacier National Park for the day, out the west entrance. We'll be back in here tomorrow.
Should be fully charged.
We pass through West Glacier Village and then head on as we're heading toward Kalispell for the night.
This is West.
Soon we're arriving in Kalispell and driving through the town. We'll be staying in the Quality Inn for the next few nights here in Kalispell. And this brings us to the end of day 9.